The first domino has fallen for UCF basketball. Chris Johnson is in the portal.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, James Duncan, UCF sports commentator and co-show host here at Locked On UCF to talk a little UCF sports here. We're talking basketball and football on today's episode. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day and for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. On today's show, we're talking about Chris Johnson hitting the portal. Was it a big loss? Some people seem to not be familiar with this game. We're here to educate you. Then we're going to talk about the rest of that roster and who's staying and who's potentially going in the second segment. Then we're going to switch to football practice. Alonzo Barnett still out, but other guys are stepping up. Let's start at the top. Chris Johnson is hitting the portal. He gone. 6.2 points per game. 1.4 rebounds, 1.9 assists. He shot 43.2% from the field. Look, Johnson wasn't a starter, James, but he had some big shots and some really big moments for UCF that helped propel them to the NCAA tournament. And the way I saw this as one of those things where while he wasn't a marquee name last year, with the guys who we'll talk about in our second segment that we knew were likely leaving or out of eligibility, he was going to be expected to step up this year and have a larger role headed into next season. So I do see this as a significant loss for UCF basketball.
Yeah, I don't know why I think people are looking at this as such like brush it off the shoulder. I understand that when you look at his averages, I mean, they're not eye-popping. They certainly wouldn't be eye-popping if he was a starter, but if you said, hey, yeah, that guy came off the bench and gave you this many points every game, this much effort, this much consistent defensive effort, I don't know if you can argue that that's a player that you can just easily replace. I hate when people act like replacing a really solid basketball player is an easy task. It's not. It's really not. And there was very few people that were able to do what Johnny Dawkins did this year with going out and getting an entirely new team from the portal. And when I ask, when I want to put a poll on my Twitter, because do fans want to do that every year?
Yeah, nobody wants to do this every year. Do you remember years and years and years? I'm dating myself, and I know you were probably like in middle school when this happened, but whatever. Do you remember the Kentucky team with John Wall and I think it was like Karl Anthony Towns?
Little Dougie action from John Wall. Yes, I know. Yeah, I know that team.
That whole starting five went to the NBA. The whole starting five. And so he had one of the best teams we had ever seen in college basketball history, and he had to replace every single one of those guys the next year. Can you imagine if they had all returned for one more season?
They would have been over. There wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been a competition.
Oh my, it is so difficult. There was once a time where you could go straight into the NBA from high school, and then they put in that 1 year removed from high school rule. And it was really to help the college game because, we only saw 1 year of guys like Carmelo Anthony at the college level, and then he was off to the NBA. Now, obviously, he was a very good NBA player. We never got to see guys like Kevin Garnett in college. LeBron, never got to see him in college. But it was already very difficult having freshmen who were stars that were going to be one and dones, right? Like where they play 1 year and then they're off to the NBA. And now with the portal, holding on to your roster is so hard. I don't know how anyone is turning their nose up at a guy who gave you solid minutes, man. And he was expected to step into a larger role this next season and be part of a core foundation that you build on year after year. So you have one of your culture keepers, man, somebody who comes in, knows how you like things done. And when you bring other guys in, they learn from him.
Yeah,
Chris Johnson could have been one of those dudes for you.
To me, it was like Chris Johnson was one of your best off the bench players, maybe your best off the bench player. And now you have two guaranteed, potentially 3 starters leaving, maybe even 4 if Burks decides to leave, or if Bowl decides to leave. You might have an entirely new team next year, but you're not going to have 2. So my thing is, why do you as a fan want that? If you went to the tournament this year, this guy helped you get there. Why do you want him to leave? Why does it not suck that he's leaving? I mean, I get that people are hung up on my phrasing when I said it is brutal that this guy left, but I think it is. I mean, he was huge for you in big time moments. When Riley Kugel was hurt, he came off and gave you minutes, and he was solid in a lot of games this year. And you give him one more year of development under Dawkins, under Coach Hood. You think that he's not going to be a starting caliber player? You think that he's not going to have that same isolation ability that he had that allowed him to get so many buckets this year? I just disagree with people thinking that this is just a toss up. It's a guy that, we didn't see play, or a guy that we didn't care about. This guy felt like he was a solid keep for the Knights if they would have been able to keep him. And, he wasn't. But, leaning into kind of our next segment, he's the only one that's announced his entrance to the portal.
Indeed. Look, we're going to get to our first break. If you're just joining us, Chris Johnson in the portal, him and his 6.2 points per game are gone. That was potentially double digits per game this coming season. So he'll be doing it for somebody else. We wish him well, unless they're playing UCF, of course. Let's get to our break. And when we come back, we're going to take a closer look at that roster, James. And who else could be following Chris Johnson to the portal, or is just out in general? We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what we like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with players, stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Guys, we've got a special offer for you right here on Locked On UCF, and it's the Everydayers Club. That's right, the Everydayers Club. If you love what we do here and you want to support what we're doing at a higher level, all we ask is that you listen. But if you want to go a step further, sign up for the Everydayers Club. You'll get ad-free content. You also get access to a member-only Discord where you can find myself and other UCF fans just like yourself talking UCF sports every minute of every day. The Everydayers Club, hit the lockedonucf.supercast.com to get signed up today. It's only $5 a month for the price of a Starbucks coffee. You can help Locked On UCF go to the next level. We are going above and beyond the normal podcast. James Duncan, Kyle Nash, Andrew Gluchov, providing you guys not only live coverage in post games, but they're going to practice this spring, giving us live reports, video highlights, press conferences. We're doing it all here at Locked On UCF. And if you sign up for the Everydayers Club, you can help us continue that work. We appreciate your support. James, who's staying, who's going? We love graphics here at Locked On UCF. So we not only talk about it, we put it on the screen for you. So here is the roster as we knew it. Gone is George Beal Jr., Tamus Folks, Riley Kugel. We talked about Chris Johnson. Devin Cambridge, feels like this guy's been in college for like 50 years, man, but he's finally out of eligibility. And help me out here with the last name.
We're talking about Fumena, or we're talking about Pupa Wara Cole New. Y'all know who we're talking about. We're talking about him.
I wanted you to fall on the sword there for me. I didn't have to butcher his name. But he gone. Look, there are 6 names here that we know are gone. Now, Chris Johnson is the only one right now that is actually hitting the portal. So not a bad sign for UCF basketball, but that's the only name headed to the portal. But we're waiting for news on like Jordan Burks. I think there's an eligibility thing there for another year. Looking at this roster, I really hope that Bowl comes back. John Bowl could be a really good anchor for you there at center in the middle, anchoring you on defense and hopefully becoming a little bit more of an effective scorer this coming season. But what names are you looking at that you're saying, hey, of the guys who aren't gone, that you want to see come back next season?
Well, to be honest, I think a majority of them I would really like to see come back. Jamichael, we're still waiting to hear on some eligibility factors. He played JUCO for 2 years prior to being here, and so that plays into his NCAA eligibility. I'm not sure if it's the same rules as football. I don't believe it is, but I think that there are things working there right now. John Bowl was a sophomore this year. He's got 2 years left. Jordan Burks was a junior, so he's got 1 year, along with Jeremy Fumena also has 1 year, and Pacheco also has 1 year. I believe that, Hulsaway and Tanner Jones and Zach Johnson, Chris Parker, these guys all have multiple years of eligibility left. They're all relatively young. Unfortunately, for someone like Hulsaway, I just don't see him getting major minutes if the Knights go to the portal and find, a really solid center from somewhere else. The only reason that I think he even really had, an opportunity this year was because of Fumena and Bowl both going down at the same time. Now, granted, there was like a 4 to 5 minute period of a game this year where it looked like Elijah Hulsaway might have been Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like, you might as well have thrown him against Arizona and he could have averaged 10 to 15 points. Like, I seriously, there was an Elijah Hulsaway bag that got brought out at some point this year. I forget which game it was. I know it was a home game. But I do think that, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to retain every single one of these guys. And I think you really need to hope that somebody like Jordan Burks stays and Fumena stays and Bowl stays. I think you have to hope that Pacheco stays. And, obviously you want the young guys to stay too, so that they can develop and potentially blossom into a bigger role next year. But you're definitely going to have more guys hit the portal. I would say maybe 1 or 2. I think that's probably the amount that you're hoping for. I mean, I know you're hoping for 0, but realistically, but honestly, the portal taketh and the portal giveth, and you just got to hope that it gives you more than it takes.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at this roster. There were some difference makers on this roster, James. Tamus, Riley, Jordan, these guys all had incredible games at times where they just stepped up and either like saved UCF or just took over in stretches. And if you're Johnny Dawkins, you got to go out and find guys in that mold who can take over a game, at least in stretches for you, and basketball games. You can't move backwards here. No matter how many guys you have to replace, everybody in college basketball has this challenge now with the portal. Re-recruiting your roster every offseason has become the new recruiting, where you not only have to hold it together, but you have to convince the guys that you had to come back. It just is what it is. And that means money, talking money a little bit more than I would like to talk. But I'm looking at this and I'm looking at this list and I'm just thinking, what a great job to build a winning roster after losing your entire roster and the Big 12's leading scorer. This is a great job by Johnny Dawkins. Let's get to our last break. And when we come back, we're going to change gears and talk football here. Some things happening still on the practice field. Kyle and James were both there for it. We're going to talk about what's happening at quarterback right here next on Locked On UCF.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. UCLA made history by winning its first NCAA Women's Basketball National Championship, dominating South Carolina 79-51. The Bruins controlled the game from start to finish with elite defense and balanced scoring, finishing the season 37-1. Star center Lauren Betts was named Most Outstanding Player, leading a team effort that capped a 31-game winning streak. Under head coach Corey Close, UCLA secured a landmark title that has been decades in the making. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes. I'm coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
James, Kiwan, is he balling? Alonzo Barnett, they've been holding out for what I really am calling undisclosed reasons because they're telling us one thing. We don't know if that thing is what they say it is, but either way, he's not out there, which means an opportunity for guys to get precious more reps here this spring. You put some video up of Kiwan throwing to a number of receivers. Who's standing out at quarterback, man? Is it Kiwan, the guy who's clearly taken the reins with Alonzo Barnett kind of sidelined this spring?
You know, I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people are looking at Annette and from Boise. And I think the obvious answer is to go with Kiwan. And I think both. I know we talked about Rocco, right? I know we talked about him potentially fighting for QB2 and how that's something that we thought would be really cool. But I think right now it is a locked battle between Annette and Kiwan. And I'm saying that with some relative confidence. Those are the guys that are being put out first in these every practice. They start with a warm up, and then they run into kind of like each quarterback gets a drive, and they start with Kiwan, and they start with Duke Watson at running back, and then they move and they have in second they've got Caleb, Annette, and Tayven Swintz, who I like that a lot. And then third, they've got Rocco with Landon, and then fourth with Dante. So although I think that Rocco is going to improve quite a bit, I don't know if it's going to be this season that we are going to see him battling for that job. But I think Kiwan is really performing better than I think his last year's numbers at FIU would give you hints to. Now, he obviously had a really solid freshman year and a really solid sophomore year at FIU. His third year kind of trailed off a little bit, but now he's being put back. He's being put into this Scott Frost system. And I think it's going to be really interesting. Caleb Annette has really showed a lot of arm strength. I think Kiwan has a little bit more mobility that I've seen. And I think Rocco is going to grow into a, kind of balanced version of both of those guys. I genuinely do think, though, in terms of the best arm that's out there right now, Caleb Annette.
Ooh, okay.
From Boise. I'm serious. The throws that I saw him make during his one drive were phenomenal.
What kind of throws are we talking about? We're talking about outs, deep balls. What
he threw a quick slant, and then he threw. I mean, they like to run the ball a lot during those scrimmages, but he had a deep ball to Day that was about as pretty as you can get. Now, something that my practice film did not show, and you might be able to see it. I wish this is why I need all 22, because I wish I could sit there and break it down for you. But there was a throw, and that throw is posted on my Twitter if you guys want to go see it. It was a throw from Caleb Annette to Day Farmer. Phenomenal catch by Day, by the way, getting 1 foot in bounds as he's falling back. great catch. That's a catch that we knew that he could make already, but phenomenal throw. My thing is that Caleb actually had someone so open up the seam that he just didn't see. I mean, there was no safety help to help the tight end over. It was either a tight end or a slot receiver over the inside seam on the left side. But he ended up throwing that ball to Day, and it was such a pretty ball and such a pretty catch that it doesn't really matter. You're moving the chains either way. But in terms of best arm, like I said, out there right now, I'm going with Caleb Annette.
Caleb Annette or Kiwan, Jenkins. James feels like maybe Rocco a little further behind the guys who've got actual college experience. Going to be fun to watch to see which one of those guys steps up and grabs the reins at QB2. Make no mistake, it's Alonzo Barnett is not going to lose his job to injury this spring. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Unless he just physically cannot go come fall.
Yeah.
But that's not what I believe we're dealing with here. I think what we're dealing with is just they're playing it safe and they don't want to push him. There's no need to, because you're not worried about what he's capable of. You're worried about getting him to the fall healthy, as healthy as you possibly can, and hopefully UCF can do that. We'll get a few scrimmages, I think, this spring here, and hopefully a chance to look at Barnett a little bit more closely. James Duncan, I want to thank you for joining me on today's show to talk a little UCF football and basketball. Guys, do us a favor, hit the comment section after the video. Let us know what you think about Chris Johnson hitting the portal. He gone. Is it a big loss for UCF in your minds? Also, who would you like to see a win QB2 behind Alonzo Barnett? Kiwan, Jenkins, is it Annette? Would you like to see the young freshman Rocco Marriott, or would you even like to see Dante Carr come out of absolutely nowhere to be QB2? We want to hear from you, guys. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with even more Locked On UCF.